This actually took about an hour and a half, closer to 2 hours, but they're pretty well grown together now. And now we have to prep the pans, and if I had pan spray I would use it, but I don't. I just have some butter, and so I'm going to put some butter in these pans. Use a fresh glove. And I could flour them too, but that isn't really necessary. And so that's that. And now, after I do all of them, I take one of these parchment papers, and I pre-creased it, and I just do that. Now that's going to help out a lot in the corners, because I think this might leak. And if it leaks a lot, I'm going to need to get it out of the corners. And there we have the relaxed piece of dough. It's 1 pound, and it could stand to proof about another hour, but it's bouncing back somewhat, and the development we hope is okay. That is the 1 pound piece of dough sheeted out. That is 8 ounces of smear on 1 pound of dough. This is the 8 ounces of smear rolled out, spread out that is, and now we're going to roll it up. We're going to start out by making a fold, and we're going to fold 6 to 9 times. 6 would be best. In fact, that's what we'll do. We're going to do 6 times. So a good way for me to think about it is to say that every 3 folds is half. So I have to cut it back a little bit here. That's 3 folds, and we're about half, so that's very good. I'm going to continue on. Now this is the babka roll with the smear in it, and this pan doesn't look very big for this amount of dough, and it isn't. But our saving grace is that this is half whole wheat, which means that it might not be as good as if it were no whole wheat, but it's half whole wheat, and so there will be less development, less expansion, and probably will fit in the pan, but everything will leak out. The babka roll is now stretched out even further, relaxed, evened up, and the seam on the top. It is then brought together in thirds. That folded dough is then twisted. The ends are brought through the loops, and it is placed into the pan, taking much care to be very, very even. This is 4 ounces of chocolate chips on 1 pound of dough, and we're just going to roll it up like that. I'm not putting any smear or anything inside. You can see it's not quite as elongated as the one with the 8 ounces of smear because it's drier. There's more body to it. So if you definitely want the seams to stick together, these are fine because the dough was a little bit moist. But you can spritz it with some water on the inside or on the outside. Because there's a little more body to this dough, it illustrates well how one can fold it into thirds and with the seams on the inside. Because there was so much body to that babka, and actually because the seams stuck together, there was no twisting it and pulling the ends through. What happened here was that I just gave it a half twist or a 3/4 twist, and it should slice up very, very nicely. Something I should mention is that no fruit or garnish, in this case chocolate chips, should be pushing through the dough, and we do have some pushing through the dough here, and this will even up nicely, most likely. So when we make raisin bread, we don't want any raisins pushing through the dough. Playtime. This is 4 ounces of smear. That's about as far as I got with that. 4 ounces of chocolate chips, and then the coup de grace. This is now sprinkled with a mixture of 2 tablespoons Hershey's 100% dark cocoa, special dark, and 1 tablespoon of sugar. So that's 2 tablespoons of 100% cocoa and 1 tablespoon of sugar, and this represents 2 tablespoons of the mixture for this loaf. I'm going to put some on top so we know which is which, but I think this one's going to be pretty darn dark. Because of the dryness of the cocoa, I figure we better sprinkle 2 tablespoons of melted butter on the inside, and that would then be 1 tablespoon of butter per 1 tablespoon of our powder. And if any of you are wondering how best to do it, it's really quite easy. You can just... I almost did it all before I remembered that I should show you how to do it. It just goes very, very, very evenly. It's beautiful. We could be in trouble with this one. So this is 9 ounces of smear, not 8, and that's because we are going to put raisins in it. And raisins are dry. 3 ounces of raisins. And here we have the 4 babka. They just need to be egg washed, proofed, and baked. Actually, egg washed after they're proofed. And these are the loaves in the proof box. Let's see, I don't know if you can see them, but they are at 114 right now, a little hot. I'm cooling it off. It looks great. I don't know how much we can tell from the video, but there is definitely no glistening of moisture on the crust. I can refer to it as the crust now, although it's not baked. It's nice and dry. Nice and dry, and that's great because the fat would just leak out if it was wet and warm, but it's dry and warm, and it says it's 116 when in reality it's about 100 degrees in there at the most, which is great. More like 96, 98. I'm checking it with the thermogun often. It is evident that the chocolate chip was the lowest one, the one with the least volume of the smear inside, etc. And it's now caught up to the others, so they're all evenly proofed. And because of the weakness in the development of a whole wheat flour, half and half dough, I'm going to go with it now. We're going to egg wash it and bake them off. Okay, now the babka loaves are egg washed, and I'm not going to mess with streusel, but on the ones that have chocolate, this is the leftover cocoa and sugar stuff, and I'm going to put it in the creases, and it might turn out to be like a glaze or something, but I thought that it would roll, but it's not. It doesn't have enough butter in it. This only has 1 tablespoon of butter, all of this, so it's not very pliable. And now into the oven, 45 minutes at 350. And here is the oven shot. This is 15 minutes into the bake, and you can see that the loaves have come up nicely. Hopefully they won't come up too much more. 30 minutes into the bake, and I turn the tray around. There's just about 3 minutes left on the bake, but I'm going to go ahead and leave the oven door open. The oven has been off for the last 3 minutes, and I'm going to set the timer for 10 minutes, so it's going to sit in there for 10 minutes with the oven door open. The babka loaves rest on the screen and they set up for about 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. They are setting up underneath the exhaust fan on high. The depanning survived relatively unscathed.